Matt, thanks for joining me, brother.
Thanks for having me back, man.
We got a solo episode. No Harry.
Missing the big guy.
The other giant.
Mm-hmm. Big Moose.
You dwarf Harry, though.
He's a big boy, though. How tall is Harry?
6'4", 230, probably.
Yeah, so we're similar height. Maybe it's the mustache.
Are you 6'5"?
I'm like 6'4" and a little change.
Nice.
Yeah, 250-ish. I've been trying to cut down lately, actually, to get my mile time down a little bit.
What are you clocking in mile time right now?
Man, if I'm sub 7 right now, I'm pretty stoked.
Damn.
But I'm trying to squat 600 and then run a 6-minute mile in the same day. Or if I can't do that, just whatever I can squat, I want to run that in a mile.
Dude.
So if I run like a 640 mile, I want to try to squat 640 in the same day. Kind of like Adam Klink style, like 5-minute mile. But I can't do 5-minute mile, but I can probably do 6-minute mile. Maybe.
I think 6 minutes at 250 is pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's a lot of meat to lug around the track, but we'll see.
It's a lot of meat. So for the listener, we had you on episode 154. You were the VP of Revenue at Hopdoddy, and we came across you because we were at that Force of Nature conference, the What Good Shall I Do conference in April of 2022, and we saw you speaking on a panel. I had gone to Hopdoddy a few times before then, but just hearing your passion for regen and a company at the scale that you guys are that really gives a shit about your customers and the way that you're sourcing your stuff just resonated a lot with Harry and I. And we had such a good episode about your backstory and what you guys are doing at Hopdoddy. So we won't go too much in the backstory. So if you're listening to this and haven't listened to our first episode, go back to 154. But dude, what have you been up to?
Man, we have been on a mission since we saw you guys last. I think last time we talked, it was actually probably an interesting time in Hopdoddy's evolution. And I feel like since, that wasn't the onus for it, but kind of since around that time, man, we have just gone pedal to the metal on stuff that I think your listeners and our clientele really care about. So huge push towards a regenerative supply chain. In line with that, we swapped out our frying oil, which I know is a hot topic that we had on our last podcast. Here in Austin, we swapped over to 0 Acre Oil.
Nice.
We can get into that a little bit if you want. And it's been going really well, and it's stuff that we're really excited about. Really just kind of nailing in our sourcing standards, even stricter than probably before, and just trying to tell the story about where people's food comes from and how it gets to the table and then the impact that it has.
That's amazing. Yeah. So if you go to Hopdoddy, how many regen items are there on the menu, would you say?
There's 6 and hopefully moving more in that direction. So we've got raw cheese on the menu. We've got Vital Farms eggs. We've got a really, really great bacon source. I'd love to figure out somebody that we could source. I mean, we sell a lot of bacon. I'd love to find somebody that can do bacon at scale. Monogastrics are tough in the regenerative world. Monogastrics meaning single chamber stomach. We've got beef, bison, working on a regenerative milkshake right now with some dairy that should be pretty cool.
Wow.
Regenerative chicken on the menu. Next year, we'll have regenerative turkey, and it's not because we didn't want to go with it. We sourced a partner, a farm that has a flock of regenerative turkeys, but they're not quite big enough. They don't have enough to support our supply. So we think by Q1, Q2 of next year, maybe Q2, they'll have enough. So we'll have regenerative turkey. And yeah, man, we're just moving in that direction. We've been in talks with people about maybe trying to co-brand some regenerative wheat that we could use in a co-branded bourbon, and maybe even looking at some regenerative bread, where we would be able to help kind of connect millers and farmers and try to figure out if we can get regenerative wheat milled into our bread and kind of bake it through our program there. So,
dude, that sounds incredible. I mean, it's safe to say there's no other restaurant at your scale that's doing what you guys are doing from a regen and sourcing standpoint.
No, I don't think so. I can confidently say that Hopdoddy is the world's largest restaurant retail outlet supporting regenerative agriculture, both from a units and a pounds moved and kind of just an environmental impact. When you look at acreage, when you look at tonnage of atmospheric carbon, when you look at, if you really wanted to get into the nitty gritty and you wanted to look at, groundwater that our company has been able to help, grasslands hold. You want to look at acreage of small water cycles we've been able to affect. I I think we're doing something that's really, really special. It's really dangerous in a business environment, right? And it's really, it takes a lot to be a vanguard of a movement. And we're trying our best, and we're learning along the way. We're taking lumps and bumps, but it's something that we're really passionate about. And, we can see where the future's going, and we just want to be there. We want to ride the wave with everybody.
Dude, that's incredible. Do you have a sense of, out of all the Hopdoddy locations, either how many customers you guys serve a day or how many burgers you guys sling a day?
Man, I could probably back into the math, but I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
If we've got, dude, let me figure it out. Like, let's just take South Congress, for example. How many people I think South Congress serves a day? They're doing that maybe by an average guest check of, I bet you we serve 1,000 people a day at South Congress.
That's one location?
Yeah, one location.
And how many locations you guys have around there?
49.
That's insane.
So, yeah, they're not all as busy as South Congress, but, maybe 50,000 people a day. So, I don't know, 2.5 million people maybe a year, maybe a little more than that.
Yeah. So, part of why I'm asking you that is because
Does that math work?
I think so.
Does that math work?
We're scientists, so
yeah, probably. Yeah, it works probably.
It works. But yeah, part of the reason why I'm asking you that is I hope the listener understands how impressive it is for you guys to be able to do that at the scale that you're doing it at. And part of why I'm saying this is that I think there's this tendency for like the animal-based customer that doesn't understand the logistics of a restaurant to be like, bro, why isn't everyone regenerative, or why isn't everyone cooking with tallow? And the beautiful thing about our first episode is you kind of gave the behind the scenes restaurant perspective of like, dude, it's not as simple as like, hey, we swap tallow, we swap regenerative. There's costs associated with this stuff. You're also a difficult buyer because the amount of meat you guys have to order is so high. So you really need to find like the perfect partners from a regenerative farm standpoint. Otherwise this thing isn't going to work because you guys are so big.
And there's a ton of back end logistics, man, like that we didn't even get into in the last episode, but like it's almost a full-time job sourcing and speccing stuff when you're really specific about what you want. Like if I find I'll give you an example. On one of our regenerative burgers, we use a raw cheddar.
Yeah.
That raw cheddar comes out of California. Well, I've got 4 restaurants in California. I've got a distribution center in California. So that actually works pretty good, but that distribution center in California also services Arizona. Okay, so now I've got to get that raw cheese from California to Arizona, which is great, but turns out the majority of my restaurants are in Colorado, Texas, Nashville, Louisiana, Florida. So the farthest east I'm getting that cheese is Arizona, and that's with one company. Now, as I move east throughout our company, our distribution partner changes.
Yeah.
So I've got one distribution partner that covers California, Arizona. Then in Colorado east, I pick up a different distribution company. So now I've got to figure out a way for that guy to get down to Arizona or all the way to California, fill a truck, and then come back this way so I can hub and spoke it, meaning if it goes to Dallas, Fort Worth, then it's got to get on a truck up to San Antonio, then it's got to get on a truck to Dallas, Metro, then it's got to get on a truck to Houston. So there's all these logistics that go into it where it's like, you pick a small single SKU, small moving volume item. Like I put 1.75 ounces of raw cheese on one regenerative burger. How many cases am I going to move? How many pounds am I going to move in Gainesville, Florida? And how do I get, if it's only a case a month, how do I get that company to get that cheese all the way out there without me having to pay triple the amount of the raw product in shipping or transportation fees? So trying to figure out those supply chain lines and trying to figure out how do I offer that guest in Gainesville the same quality and the same price that somebody in Newport Beach is going to get when the cheese is only made 40 minutes away. So it's a huge undertaking to do, but it is something that it's what we do. It's our job. It's what we do for a living. And we're passionate about it, but it's really, really tough. And what you said about size and scale is really weird. If you're at, like, I think a good rule is probably like 0 to 10 restaurants. You don't have a lot of constraints.
Yeah.
10 to maybe 25 is really a sweet spot where you've got enough scale that people will pay attention to you, but you're not so big that you end up out voluming your partner.
Yeah.
And then 25 to 50 is where you get people's attention, but it's still, you still have to be conscious not to like call somebody and they're like, yeah, man, I can't help you out.
Yeah.
It actually works in the bigger you get, almost the harder it is to get a good price and get a good product, which is kind of crazy.
Dude, just the logistics end of distribution end of it's making my head spin outside of like sourcing from the farms, menu creation, setting the price. Like there's so many components that go into what you're doing right now.
It's wild, man. And every distribution center is going to have a different freight cost. So we've got to fold that into the price and try to make sure the guest doesn't hit the guest too much harder. And I mean, it's a rodeo, man. But that's how you make food taste different. Like when you're in the food business, you know, the enemy of great is good enough.
Yeah.
Right. And the companies out there that serve food that's good enough, they typically just use stuff that's sitting in the local distribution center, that it's the same cheese that they're sending out to the 5 other chain restaurants. And that's why food kind of can taste pretty homogenous across the board, right? That's why you can go to like, you could take somebody's food and rip the packaging off it and take a like product and rip the packaging off, and five of the same item from different places might taste more similar than not.
Yeah. Matt, did you ever go to the French Laundry?
I did.
What'd you think about it?
I cooked there.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I cooked there for a while.
So you worked under Thomas Keller?
Tim Hollinsworth was a chef when I was there, but yeah, Thomas Keller was a chef there. But yeah, I think the laundry's great.
Yeah.
The whole way that you start at the French Laundry is like you're a commis, which is basically like a prep cook's prep. And, you know, you start in the garden and you start harvesting, you know, your vegetables and your herbs, and you start doing things that happen to the food before it even gets in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so the romance and the simplicity and the beauty and the elegance behind just food as it should be is really what I think put Thomas on the map. And Thomas is a master of just serving simple food done really, really, really well. And a lot of people say simple, but I'm talking like 3 ingredient dishes that most people can't do. It's the hardest thing to obtain in culinary is simplicity. So like if you want to, if you and I are going to make a soup, we can put 50 ingredients in it and make it taste great. Yeah. That's not hard. It's really hard to make carrot soup with 3 ingredients.
Yeah.
You know, like Thomas does.
I mean, how many other 3 Michelin-starred restaurants are taking a simplified approach to cooking as he is? Probably not many.
Yeah.
Right?
He is an American rock star in the culinary world, and he put us all on the map, man.
Dude, I didn't know that you did. I don't remember.
I just staged there.
But so still,
like,
though.
Yeah, you cooked there for a little bit. Everybody's done a little time with the laundry.
Yeah. And I remember, I've just heard so much about the French Laundry, and on YouTube, I forget what Bourdain's original series was. Maybe it was No Reservations or something like that. So in 99, he goes out to the French Laundry, and I remember Thomas was basically like, here's my secret. And he's just showing them the garden and the farm that they're sourcing everything from. And he said everything that you just said. It's like, you want to know why my food is so good? It's because I actually have intentionality with how I grow it too.
Yeah. He was amazing at talking about sustainability in a way that totally transformed the way that I thought of sustainable long before regenerative and long before all this stuff kind of really came to the forefront. And he would talk about, I remember kind of listening to conversations, and he would say, like, take lobster, for example.
Yeah.
Like some people can serve lobster year round. He serves lobster at a specific time of year, but he's in California. He gets his lobster from Maine, right? Now, a lot of people would say, well, it's not sustainable because it's not local. And he would always push back and say, well, what is local and what is the definition of sustainable? And he would talk about how if he can get the freshest, best lobster in the country and it's the best product, and he gets it from, you know, like a fisherman off a boat in Maine, and that whole local economy and commerce and that whole ecosystem in Maine is really around fishing and, you know, harvesting lobster. And then he gets it next day aired out to him. Does it really matter that it didn't come from right down the road?
Yeah.
Because it actually sustains an economy. It helps commerce, and it sustains that customer. Or I'm sorry, it sustains that community. And so he has a very nuanced approach to sustainability that I thought was really beautiful, in that, you know, sustainability doesn't just have to mean it's green and it's eco-friendly. Sometimes, you know, sustaining more than just the environment is also something that needs to be important, especially when you're talking about food and you're just trying to serve the best food you can.
Yeah. Sustainability has multiple different definitions. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when you first came on the show in episode 154, we were talking about your culinary background, because for people that don't know, you owned and operated numerous high-end restaurants. Something I didn't ask you, and you just brought this up in me, was there an adjustment period of going from cooking this like super gourmet cuisine to like, I don't want to call it a more simplified menu. I don't know if that's the word. That's
a good description for it.
Was it an adjustment? Was there like ego associated with that? Or were you just pumped to be at this new brand that was doing things the right way?
Man, I was really pumped to be down here and working on this brand.
Yeah.
This sounds probably like a canned answer, but I don't think I've backed up on anything since I came here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use tweezers anymore, and I'm not making quenelles, and I'm not making blonde veal stock.
Yeah.
But man, there's a lot of intentionality, and there's a lot of fine details that we put into our food at Hopdoddy that I think is something that really makes it taste different.
Yeah.
And there'll be a lot of technique and a lot of ingredient driven flavors and food and pairings that we put on the menu that the guest might not see what goes into it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Which is great, but what they taste is a really, really elevated experience that they couldn't get anywhere else. Like our Roosevelt burger on the menu at Hopdoddy right now. The inspiration for that literally came from just a time when I was working Garmager, which is like the cold station and nice restaurant. And it was honey, it was fresh honeycomb, it was fresh goat cheese, and there was like a berry coulis on the side. There was red peppercorns and cardamom and a little bit of lemon juice on the toast points, and it was just this beautiful composed dish. And those are all the flavors that are found in our Roosevelt burger, but it's done with bison. So I took the honeycomb that I kind of remember from being on that charcuterie board, and I took the goat cheese, and so there's a whipped goat cheese on that burger. And then there's arugula on it, and it's dressed with pink peppercorns and lemon juice and olive oil, and it's dressed really nice, and that's on that burger. And then the compote that was on that charcuterie board, I was like, gosh, what's going to go really good with bison and goat cheese? So there's a cherry and a fig jam that we put on that burger. And so that whole burger kind of is kind of an homage back to like a charcuterie board that I would have been making on a cold salad station and like a really nice restaurant. But on our menu, it's really it's an ode to Teddy Roosevelt, the greatest conservationist of all time. And it's a regenerative bison burger, and it's just phenomenal.
Dude, that's the perfect way to describe the way that I view Hopdoddy, because I've always felt like you guys have this certain finesse that other burger spots or fast casual, I don't know if that's what you would describe yourselves as, but that other fast casual restaurants don't have. And that's what it is. It's like this embodiment of like all your old technique, and you're implementing that into these burgers and the food you're serving. Yeah,
I mean, it's really cool because in this segment, in this category, they come across as really bold, adventurous, kind of, esoteric flavors. But if you wipe burgers off the, picture and you look at flavors that you'd see everywhere else, it's pretty, the stuff that we're doing at Hopdoddy, it's very familiar. Like you've seen it, you'll come across it. I think that's why people gravitate towards it, because they're like, man, I think I've had something like that. Like the burger we were just looking at before we started, right? It's got crispy prosciutto, it's got basil pesto, it's got truffle aioli, it's got dressed arugula, it's got salted tomatoes, it's got this chicken breast, and it's kind of like, man, those flavors all kind of feel similar, but the way that we present it with a little toasted rosemary bun on top, like it's just different. It just hits different.
Yeah, it really is, like, in terms of flavor, it's a representation of you. And now the sourcing, which is arguably the most exciting thing you guys are doing, that's also a representation of your ethos too. How cool does that feel?
It's super cool, man. It's been a really, really amazing ride. And somebody asked me the other day, like, what got me into regenerative agriculture? It's really two things. One, my best friend, who would probably tell you that I'm always the one showing him stuff.
Yeah.
I remember years and years and years ago, he started eating Force of Nature bison. And he was like, man, have you ever seen this? I was like, no, I haven't. And he showed it to me. I think I was at his house. And I looked on the back, said Austin, Texas, and I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit, because everything's based in Austin. I feel like,
Totally.
every food brand is based in Austin.
100%.
And I kind of shelved that, and that was in the back of my mind. And then moved here, saw Force of Nature, and was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And see it at Whole Foods. But then what really pushed me into regenerative agriculture, somebody asked me this question the other day, was they asked me what opened your eyes to it. And it was the first time I ever hunted at Rome Ranch. So I'm hunting out at Rome Ranch, which for people who are listening, the co-founders of Force of Nature own Rome Ranch, which is a regenerative ranch, bison ranch, in Fredericksburg, Texas. My wife and I were hunting out there, and I was just astonished. Like, there's no fences, there's nothing going on out there, but there's just this immense amount of wildlife that just gravitates to the place. And so started asking some questions, started kind of peeking around, wondering why is so many animals here? Why are they so big? Why is everything kind of flocking here? And that's kind of one of the things that really got me personally into regenerative ag, is like, why does that ranch over there have nothing? And over here, you guys are able to sell access hunts in Central Texas with no fences, which nobody hunts in Central Texas without a fence. I mean, not nobody, but most people have a fence.
Yeah, it's such a good point. It's well said. I feel like Taylor and Katie that own Rome Ranch are like I think there's so many people's heroes, honestly, because they truly embody this movement. And it's amazing to hear your description of the hunt, especially knowing when they bought that piece of property, they had these specialists out there and told them, hey, it's going to take you guys 30 years to regenerate anything on the space. Yeah. And they fully regenerated it in like 5.
Yeah, Taylor and Katie are savants. They are committed. They are passionate. They live it every day. They're so open and gracious and generous with their time. You could just be driving by their ranch and pull up and be like, hey, I'd love to learn a little bit more about regenerative ag. And Taylor will hop out of his truck with his Chippewa boots and some shorts on and drive in the middle of the field and be like, here it is, man. What do you think? And he'll talk to anybody about everything. And Katie's a wealth of knowledge and super, super passionate about it. They're amazing people. My wife and I got engaged out there. I proposed to my wife.
Did you really?
I proposed to my wife at Rome Ranch, yeah.
Dude, that's the best engagement you could possibly have,
dude,
honestly.
we hunted there, and then it was like a year or so later, I called Taylor and Katie. I was like, this is a really special place to us. I'd love to propose to my wife. And they were like, anything you want. And they were amazing with it. And so we did it down by the river, right on the Pedernales, and yeah, it was amazing. So that ranch, those people, that place have a really, really special place in my heart.
And knowing the way that you described Taylor, how badass of a hunter she is, how much she loves wildlife, it's probably the perfect proposal. I'm sure.
And
as good as it could have been.
Going out there was her idea to hunt.
Yeah.
Because she was like, hey, I know you haven't really done a lot of hunting. I'd really love to hunt. I've wanted to hunt in access ever since I moved here. So I got online, started trying to find some access hunts, and then I told her a couple places, and she's like, I'd really love to go to Rome Ranch. I've been out there with my previous company, and we should see if we can get out there. And so I got in touch with Taylor Collins at Rome Ranch, and it was her idea to go out there. And so, I think it was a nice kind of full circle moment for us, and it was really cool.
That's incredible. So when I first saw you speak in April 2022, was it just the regenerative bison line that you guys had? That was the one product.
Yeah, we just had one burger on the menu.
Wow. And how many did you say now?
6.
That's wild. Yeah. In less than 2 years.
Yeah.
You guys are moving at insane velocity. And that relationship just started because you were hunting out and going out to Rome Ranch, right?
Mm-hmm. We've talked about this a little bit, but the interplay and the juxtaposition between hunting, conservation, regenerative ag, and ranching and farming.
Yeah.
There's a really symbiotic relationship there that's really cool, and it's really beautiful. I have really, really close friends that I admire, and that's like a through line in their life and their personality, right? Is like, I'm a hunter, I'm a conservationist, and then, I've devoted my life to agriculture and, regenerative agriculture specifically. And I think that's a really, really cool balance and kind of like interplay between, professional and personal values.
So you start hunting at Rome Ranch. Would you say, were you kind of the first person at Hopdoddy to be like, hey, I think we need to start having some regenerative items on here? And did you bring that up to the CEO?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was, in all transparency, I think I've always taken the approach, since I've been in charge of sourcing at Hopdoddy, that we should always look in our backyard first. We should always look in Austin. Not to run in contrast to what I said about Thomas Keller, but I just think that Austin has such a cool food ethos and such a cool food culture here. There's so much creativity going on. There's so much so many cool people doing cool things here that I think you'd be kind of stepping over dollars to pick up dimes if the first time you went to source something you didn't look in Austin. So the fact that Force of Nature was was kind of founded in Austin piqued my interest after I was really piqued with the the farm and the ranch and seeing everything. But yeah, it was probably, it was a joint effort between our CEO and I was just like, man, I think we can do this. And I think this is really important. We took a survey of our guests, and at the time, one of the questions, we did a max div survey. And basically what that is if I ask you, is healthy food important? You're going to say yes. Mm-hmm. But if I ask you, rank what's more important, healthy food or price, that's a more statistically relevant, indicative depiction of your guest.
Yes.
And based on how you'd answer, we could then tailor more questions, and we would say, okay, is health more important than location? Okay, is health more important than, and so we could kind of tier that down. And when we started asking our guests about bison, because we had a bison burger on the menu, most people actually errantly were under the impression that the bison on our menu was grass-fed.
Interesting.
And it wasn't, and that was a bit of a problem for us because we're people that want to run a company based on integrity and truth of menu. And so that was another component of it, was people out there are under the impression if they go to Costco and get brand X of bison, that it's grass-fed, and it's not. And if that's something that's important to people, we want to make sure that we have something to offer them if that's what they're after. So it was Austin, it was hunting, it was grass-fed, and that all kind of led itself to regenerative. And then once we started digging into it and really lifting up the hood a little bit, we're like, hey, this is bigger than us. This is a big deal. This is bigger than restaurant space. This is bigger than Austin. This is bigger. This is a worldwide thing. This is a big deal that we could have an impact on.
Do you have a sense of how much more expensive it is for you guys to source a lot of these items through a regenerative source versus going conventional like you guys were doing before?
Yeah, we still do have some conventional beef on our menu. Yeah. We try our best to source it, as intentionally as we can. It's delicious food.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's expensive. I mean, from a dollar amount, I'd probably have to do some math, but it's substantial.
It's significant.
It's significant.
Yeah.
We try not to pass all of it through to the guest because we still want to make sure that we are price sensitive to what's going on, in the economy, and we want to make sure that we don't get passed over. We want to make sure that people aren't like, oh, Hopdoddy's too expensive, I can't go there.
Yeah.
We're never going to win on speed, so we know that. We probably aren't going to win on price, so we have to win in quality, service, ambiance, variety, uniqueness, those type of things.
Yeah.
But just because we can't win on price doesn't mean we need to just go to the end of the earth, right?
Totally.
So, if you're a restaurateur out there and you're listening to this, I'd say it's 2 or 3% on your cost of goods will probably, if you really take a regenerative supply chain and plug it into your operation.
Yeah. And also back to the bison thing that you were saying before, it's not like you guys were greenwashing at all. I don't know why. I think for whatever reason, there's this like weird buyer psychology where I think most people think that bison is grass-fed. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's just a myth that was popularized for some reason.
I agree.
But I don't know why that is.
I don't either. Well, we could guess because when bison, were roaming our Great Plains and they were, out here in the hundreds of thousands, they migrated on grass, they ate grass. Bison's such an American treasure that has done a lot for our grasslands, and hopefully one day we'll restore all of those grasslands. But I think grass and bison just kind of go hand in hand. So I think people, when you see a picture of bison, you're seeing it eating grass, and you're not seeing it in a feedlot. Yeah,
it's interesting, right? Because beef is obviously incredible, but I mean, it's like bison is really the ruminant that built this rich soil that we have now. I sometimes think about the fact that there were 80 million bison at one point in the country in like the 1500s. And I think we hunt them down to like 800 or something like that? It was that low.
Something insane. I think bison are so cool. And I'm not as big of a bison nerd as friends of mine, but bison are such an amazing animal. I read that, they think that the saliva glands in bison, when they eat a plant, might actually help stimulate the regrowth of it.
Interesting.
And their hoofs are obviously a little bit different, a little bit more aggressive. So they help, aerate and till the soil.
Yeah.
But I mean, bison, like you almost can't think of America without thinking of a bison. Like there's a bald eagle, right? And then like a bison should be right there.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like the most American ruminant animal. It's the most American land dwelling thing that there is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's such a special treasure that you can only find them in North America.
Have you gotten to hunt bison yet?
I've never hunted bison. I've never hunted a free range bison. I've been a part of some bison harvests at Rome. But I've never hunted a bison.
I'm sure
I don't know that I would. Maybe I would. I don't know. I feel like if I knew that it was like if it was like a good hunt that was, I don't know, if the tag was really expensive and I knew it like went back to bringing wild bison back, probably. But
have you met Robbie Kroger yet?
I haven't.
He has this channel on Instagram called Blood Origins.
You sent me that. I listened to I listened to part of his podcast with you guys. He is a wealth of knowledge.
He's an amazing guy. We got to connect you guys too, because there's some connect. I feel like you guys would hit it off too.
Yeah, he is a wealth of knowledge. I see stuff that he posts all the time, and he is like really, really intelligent on, from a hunter's advocacy standpoint, from a conservation standpoint. I mean, he is like got his thumb on him, the pulse of what's going on.
Yeah, he's dialed in. He's incredible. So in 2022, when you guys launched that bison burger, was there an explosion in sales, or were customers slower to it? Like, do you remember what the buzz was like when you guys first launched it?
I think that it was a slow build.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I don't necessarily know that we had our messaging really right. And I don't think we were really prepared to tell the story behind regenerative agriculture and what that means for conservation and what that means for human health and planetary health. So I think it was really slow. We still sold a good amount because there was a desire for the product. We probably picked up a little bit, a couple, 2-3%, because I think there's a association with the quality when Force of Nature puts their name on something. But it didn't pop off like it has recently.
Yeah.
After we really kind of got the messaging behind it and the storytelling behind it, it's been the largest growing sector on our menu in the last couple, 3 months. By like empirically, we can show like people are selecting regenerative beef over other products, and we're selling more of that than we ever have.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And it could have been so easy. It was still a huge win just to launch that first regenerative bison burger. And it could have been so easy to be like, hey, we've got one regenerative item. No other restaurant our scale is doing anything regenerative. We could just leave it here and then just kind of, just do our normal conventional sourcing. But you guys really decided to go all in. You have 6 regenerative products on the menu, which is insane. Was there like a moment that sticks out where you guys were all like, we're going all in on this. This is where we're going to create way more products? And maybe it wasn't a moment, but a general movement. Just curious.
This is going to sound like a canned answer again, but it was probably in a duck camp. We were sitting around in a duck camp with the guys from Force of Nature and Jeff and I, our CEO, and we were having this kind of roundtable discussion the night before we were going to go out and hunt ducks, and we were eating regenerative ribeyes, and we were talking to them, and they were telling us about their mission as a company, and we were telling them about our mission as a company, and we just really saw our ethos and our collective mission really kind of run in parallel. And I think it was probably at that moment that it dawned on me that, like, to really make a difference and to really make an impact, although you and I might love bison, the general average consumer probably isn't willing to dive into that quite as like headlong as you and I might be. And the other thing is that to really make a change and really make an impact, we needed to do something in beef.
Yeah.
Like, I will never stop selling bison, and I will never stop loving bison. I sleep with a bison skull over my head, over my bed. But if we wanted to make a change, it needed to be with beef. That's how you can drive change. That's how you can bring widespread awareness, and that's how you can really get regenerative ag forefront in people's minds and on people's plates, is through beef.
Yeah.
And so that's really where I think that was probably the moment where I was like, yeah, we got to do beef. And then chicken came in, and chicken, for whatever reason, has got tons of popularity always behind it. People are always interested in your chicken.
We're obsessed with chicken.
Yeah, as a culture, we are just obsessed with chicken. And from like a macronutrient, micronutrient standpoint, like doesn't hold a candle to bison.
It doesn't hold a candle.
But people love it. And then chicken kind of came in. So I think that was probably the moment that I was like, yeah, we're going to do this.
Yeah, chicken is so interesting because at least with beef, Like there's some, at least I know I can go to Whole Foods and get Force of Nature, and I know it's going to be grass finished. There are some really good grocery stores where you can verify and get grass finished beef. But chicken is like this black box where I almost think that any chicken you get in a grocery store is not going to be, it's all going to be corn and soy fed.
It's pretty
There's
tough,
almost
man.
no way to verify.
It's pretty tough. I mean, I know here at Central Market, there's some, Cook's Ventures for sale there. It's a great chicken product. But yeah, man, there's a ton of problems with chicken. Problems that like I'm probably not even the best person to talk about.
Yeah.
But I know we talk about free range, like what the actual, like if people listening, like what if you actually look up what the definition of free range is, like it's like the chicken's ability to like see the light, like walk outside and like do it, like turn around and come back in. Never ever no antibiotic chicken or all natural chicken, like that. That really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. No antibiotic, no hormone chicken does, but all natural chicken, that doesn't mean anything.
It means literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
Yeah. Even organic, right? Organic just means it's fed organic corn and soy.
Yeah.
Right? There's so much greenwashing.
Which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
And then there's humongous problems with the word organic too. Mm-hmm. The deeper we get into regenerative ag, we really realize that regenerative is not just a step up from organic. It's a whole new level.
Yeah.
It is almost incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Like the amount of agriculture in the U.S. that's certified organic, I think is something like 3 or 4%. Super, super low. And the people that are listening are probably like, I see organic everywhere at the grocery stores. You're right. Most of that organic product is coming in from overseas. And so the real problem there is when organic stuff comes in from overseas, it doesn't need to be certified the same way that we would certify our organic. So if I'm the U.S. and I have, 3 or 4, it's a low single-digit % of of certified organic product here, but the grocery stores are filled with it, and you're somebody that, you're a country outside of the U.S. and you're sending me bananas that are organic, they don't fall under the same scrutiny that U.S. bananas do, but they're going to go on the shelf as organic. So there's really no way to even trace that stuff.
There's like this massive curtain with our food system that no one knows anything about. And I feel like that curtain is starting to get lifted through conversations like this. But even chicken, part of how we blew up originally was I just wrote a thread about how chicken sourcing and the chicken industry has changed so much. And it got like 20 million impressions on Twitter and we grew like 40,000 followers.
Yeah.
And it was the header was that since 1950, our chicken has increased like 350% in size.
Yeah.
And we now slaughter our birds at like 6 weeks. And I think it used to be 18 weeks or something like that.
Slow growth birds, like that's something that people can look for too. Like if you see a brand that's advertising slow growth bird or like an older bird, it's definitely going to taste different than the younger bird that you're talking about. But yeah, it is crazy. Like most people don't even understand that the chickens, the breasts that you're getting at the grocery store or something like that, like if you just go to your regular grocery store, those chickens might not have ever even walked.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're pumped with so much steroids and so many hormones that they can't even stand up or they'll break their legs.
Yeah.
And then they're sitting there and they're putting their fecal matter all over the eggs, and then those are the eggs we're eating. And so there's tons of problems with that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, with your culinary background, I remember there was this Julia Child quote, and she basically is like, chicken should be so flavorful that all it really needs is like salt, pepper, olive oil, and butter. And it's almost unfathomable for the modern American to picture chicken like that because it's just so dry, bland, overinflated in size. And then you have a real pasture-raised chicken, and it's unlike anything you've ever had.
Yeah, there's this robust, deep, like depth of flavor that is almost indescribable. I feel the same way about turkey.
Yes.
Like when you eat, with Thanksgiving coming up, like if you're going to go to the store and get like a butterball turkey that's got, a 6% saline pump on it, and it's all blown up and it's this big, like go shoot a turkey in the field and hold the turkey up and see what it looks like. Or look at an heirloom heritage turkey and it looks like an emaciated cousin of like whatever you've seen in the grocery store, but the flavor is like completely different.
Yeah.
It's amazing how different it is. Now I'm not saying everybody's going to love, a wild turkey or a heritage turkey because everybody's been conditioned to, turkeys that you would get at, Subway or something like that.
Totally.
But
yeah, we'll have to talk to Robbie and the team at Force of Nature because I feel like for them, I'm sure they're thinking about this, but if they were able to get like regenerative or like evolutionarily consistent chickens and turkeys into these grocery stores, it would be insane because no one's doing that at scale.
I know they have some chicken in grocery stores, and I know they're working on it. But like I was saying before, I think that monogastrics in general are just a bit of a problem. The single chambered stomach, and I just think it's a really tough uphill battle to climb with monogastrics compared to ruminants. So I think it's something they're working on, but just the size of herd that you would need to really sell that at scale, I think can be a challenge. You know?
Can I get one of those, by the way?
Absolutely.
I don't know where my 6s went.
Right next to you.
Oh, no, this is empty. I had a little mid-break stimmy session.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So you guys have 6 items on the menu. Oh, and you know what? So beyond just the meat section, I mean, you guys.
Interesting pun there. We'll get back. We'll
come back to that. One of my favorite parts of our first podcast, episode 154, was I felt like you gave me really practical and almost a different perspective on seed oils that I had never heard before, that I think I honestly needed to hear too.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so easy to just blanket be like, well, I cook with ghee and butter and tallow, so you guys as the restaurant need to do that too. And you're like, bro, there's so many more variables that go into this. Because you were like, dude, I cook with tallow myself.
Yeah.
But here's all the things that you need to consider from a Hopdoddy perspective. Yep. And since then, you guys are now switching from vegetable oils in the deep fryer to 0 Acre Farms, which is incredible. So I'd love for you to dig into that story and what happened there.
Man, so it's really interesting we talk about the first episode because I wish Harry was here. But we were we were kind of diving into the nasty world of seed oils. And I think seed oils, there's a movement there for sure. I think it's a growing movement. There's apps like Seed Oil Scout, and there's Instagram followers or Instagram influencers that are so anti seed oil. And I see the point behind all of it, and I see the viral rejection to seed oils, and I understand why. And I get that, they're sprayed with craziness and they're, made in such a way that are, terrible for the environment. And they're, they were originally used as, car parts and motor oil, and now we're frying food in it. And I get all that. I just think that what we were talking about in the original episode was threefold. Was one, the practicality of what it's like to move away from that product.
Yep.
2, what the alternatives are to that and what those look like. And then 3, is just what is the science really telling us in regard to seed oils? And stepping into that, I think, the first thing is how challenging it is for a restaurant to move away from a product like that. It's not as simple as just being convicted and saying no seed oils today. Yep. Because you and I both know, like, there's oil in, your buns, there's oil in your mayonnaise, there's oil in, sometimes sometimes packaged products that you get have oil in them. So to say you have a seed oil free environment in your kitchen is remarkably hard to do. I would venture to say it's next to impossible. If you have a seed oil free restaurant, you're not buying any sauce from somebody else, hardly any. I'd really be interested in like what your breads look like what any type of starch that you're getting. Basically anything that you're buying from somebody else, unfortunately, is probably going to have seed oils in it. And we should put a pin in that, and we can come back to that. So that's really challenging. Number 2 is the availability of alternative products out there is remarkably limited, whether it's tallow or ghee or a product like 0 Acre. It's really, really hard to source, and it's really expensive. 3 times more expensive, minimum.
3 times more expensive.
Minimum. And if, I don't want to get too far into like the food conspiracy of, government behind it, but there's a reason seed oils are so cheap because it's a monocrop that can be planted with crop insurance that the Farm Bill helps fund. And the majority of those crops actually end up in, ethanol production, which goes to our fuel. But part of that is going to be part of those same crops are going to be used for seed oil. And so, or vegetable oil. Yeah. So it's really hard to get your hands on that product. It's really hard to vet and test it. And then once you do vet and test it, your listeners, 100%, they're going to be like, man, tallow's amazing. anybody that cooks in tallow at home knows that tallow has a pretty distinct flavor.
Definitely.
Like not everything everybody wants tasting like beef fat.
Yeah.
Like that's just the bottom line. Like you and I can sit here and be like, man, asparagus would be delicious in beef tallow. It's like, you know what, man, asparagus would be delicious in beef tallow, like as an occasion. Like if I came over to your house tonight, I'd probably like blanch some asparagus. I'd shock them in some water. I'd pat them dry. I'd heat up a little bit of tallow. I'd bring it just to smoke point. I'd sear them off really quick. I'd finish it with some fleur de sel, and I'd like grate some lemon on top of it, and it'd be amazing to try to, and like, I'd try to like cut some of the fat, but like every day eating that might be a little bit much, you know?
Yeah.
I don't debate the fact that like there's some serotonin in tallow, in that fat, that really helps your mitochondria, makes you feel better, gives you better energy. It's probably cleaner burning. Don't debate any of that. It's really heavy. Like it's heavy. It's a heavy product. When it cools at room temperature, it gets hard. When fries cool, if they're fried in beef tallow, sometimes there's going to be like a coagulated white exterior on it, right? There's challenges there. Duck fat, remarkable product. Definitely tastes a little birdie, right? Like you're going to taste a little duck in there. I think that thick cut fries in like a pub style restaurant, amazing that way. But your everyday fry done in duck fat for the soccer mom that comes in with her 9-year-old, maybe he doesn't want duck fat fries.
Yep.
So trying to find a product that fits everybody when you're at scale can be challenging. And that's just one component of it. You know, the other component of it, like we're saying, is the cost. It can be cost prohibitive. It can be really challenging. And it's really hard to like tell somebody, like I saw you guys put up something the other day, like what would you guys pay for, you know, clean fried food or no seed oil food, I think. And most people would pay more, but there's a really large sample set of people that just want good French fries.
100%.
You know, and I'm not saying that they're wrong, and I'm not saying that we're right. I'm just saying when I look at being in the business of business, I have to look at it all.
Yes.
And then the last component is that, you know, I think that the science is still, to say that it's inconclusive is actually probably doing the anti-seed oil community a favor, in that, you know, anybody can sit in your chair right now, and if they can present one study showing that seed oils are innocuous to negative human health, I would gladly entertain the conversation, and I will change my mind like that. But from everything that I'm seeing, and the preponderance of evidence out there would show that, maybe they were used as, you know, motor oil chemicals, and maybe they are monocrops that kill the environment. And I get both of those things. But as far as like independently deleterious to human health, I think the jury is still out. If not, it's not a huge factor. Where I think it confounds and becomes a major factor is back to what my original point, which is seed oils are found in everything.
Everything.
And it's just such a plus up calorically in stuff that it probably doesn't need to be in. Meaning, like potato chips, right? When you buy potato chips, do they need to be laced with seed oil? Probably not. Like when you buy frozen French fries at the grocery store, like if you buy those Alexia fries at the grocery store, there's seed oils inside of the frozen potato.
Yes.
Like that's kind of crazy. And so my question would be, my statement would be, if you eat French fries from the grocery store that you put in your air fryer, okay, they're going to have seed oils in them. If you eat French fries from me at Hopdoddy, mine are going to have seed oils in them. Do I think mine are healthier? Yes, I do. Do I think it's because I don't have seed oils in them? No, I don't. I think it's because mine are probably going to have less calories, right? Because of the 0 acre oil that we're using, it absorbs a lot less oil, and they're not quite as greasy. So our fries are have a lower caloric load than they did before, which I think is really impactful. But one of the things that we're messaging right now is once we roll this out to our whole company, we're going to remove like 398 million calories from our menu. Yeah. Because that oil, although fries are porous, it doesn't absorb as much into the French fry. So it's this remarkable sensation. Like these fries literally taste air fried and so clean. It just tastes like potato. Wow. So calorically, I think that our fries are much more healthy because there's less there. Yeah. I think that's a component. I think the reheating and cooling of oil, I think there is some science that's starting to show that that can be problematic as far as breaking down the bonds in the oil. So from a health perspective, a lot of the seed oil movement loses me a little bit because I feel like it's just devoid of relevant scientific data. Yeah. As far as how it tastes and what the impact on the environment is, that's what really got me.
Yeah.
It feels really backwards to be on this mission to help restore North American grasslands and do good for the environment and help sequester atmospheric carbon and help topsoil runoff and help our water cycles, and then serve a monocrop product that basically flies in the face of all that. So that was really where we landed, was this is really in line.
Yeah.
0 acre oil comes from sugarcane. It's the highest yielding crop in the world. So if you have 1 acre of land and you want to plant something on there, the most yield that you're going to get from that acre is going to be sugarcane. The least that you're going to get, one of the least, is like rapeseed, which we make canola oil from, right?
Yeah.
So from a yield perspective and from a grasslands used and from an irrigation perspective, the oil that we're choosing to use now is far superior. And then if you even move that aside, it just tastes amazing. And at the end of the day, I am in the business of business, and I'm in the business of serving the best product I possibly can. And that seed oil free product that we're using right now is the cleanest tasting thing I've ever had.
Wow. It was an amazing response to a very complicated question. We could probably do a 3-hour podcast just on seed oils alone. Yeah, it's interesting. Have you connected with Jason Karp yet from Human Co?
Oh yeah, we're working on some stuff together.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a great episode with him, gave the whole Hugh story, the Human Co story, and he probably has like the best seed oil argument that I've seen. Is he basically admits like there's not scientific evidence that this stuff is deleterious, like you said, to human health. He's like, for me personally, I just don't want to eat something that's gone through a 15-step process. And I
don't disagree.
Yeah, that's a way better argument, because if we want this alternative health movement to have legitimacy, just single-handedly blaming seed oils for everything is just not the right way to do it at all.
Totally agree. Jason's remarkably smart. He's a great dude. I mean, the guy looks amazing.
Yeah,
right? And
he's crushing it.
Yeah, he's. I mean, when you look at him, you're like, yeah, you probably don't eat anything that's not that you don't make,
Yeah.
But all the products that Jason makes are absolutely amazing. All the products that he's made in his past are amazing, and there's a ton of really good arguments to why not to consume seed oils. And I think what you said was absolutely perfect. Like, if you're people that eat that are consuming an inordinate amount of seed oils, they're probably just eating a lot of processed food.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't eat a bunch of processed food, you're probably not coming in encounter with a bunch of seed oil. Like, for somebody like you, and knowing you're in Harry's diet and the way that you guys eat, it's probably not hard to avoid seed oils. You guys probably eat some fruit. You guys eat meat. You guys maybe have some
little veg.
Little veg. Maybe some starchy, carbs. Like, where's the seed oil there?
Yeah.
It's not really hard to avoid. If you're eating, so when I get maybe a little bit, when the seed oil community loses me is when you look at human population studies and people are like, well, seed oil consumption is through the roof and our health is, going down here. Well, we're also not talking about the fact that processed food consumption is going through the roof. Yeah. Right. If you're eating potato chips and Snicker bars and French fries and stuff all the time, I think that, is it the seed oils that are killing human health? Or is it the fact that you're eating a bunch of empty calories, processed food, not enough protein, and you're over consuming empty calories? Yeah.
Yeah. The shit that pisses me off, and we can decide if we want to say the name or not, is when I see certain health influencers, like someone we know that was an Austin guy that goes into a Hopdoddy, and you guys are doing things better than almost any other restaurant. It's better than any other restaurant at your scale. You're sourcing from regenerative. You're trying to swap out seed oils, whatever. I remember a year ago, he shoved a camera at a Hopdoddy and was basically shitting on you guys for cooking with seed oils. And I'm like, you're so counterproductive to the movement because you're not accepting all the amazing things that these guys are doing. And that unrelatability it just drives me insane.
Well, it's tough because I think that type of like food is religion type kind of cultish thing it really just divides the conversation, and it does nothing to kind of move things forward.
Yep.
You know, we're a big company, right? Like
Yep.
we're not a little sailboat that can just kind of flick our sail and change course overnight. So like we might have, you know, we put things in motion years ago. Like if you talk to Jeff Knobs, president and CEO of Zero Acre, he will tell you that 3.5-4 years ago, we started our first conversation about seed oil. So to see people lacing us on the internet about why we're cooking with seed oils, and me having to sit back the whole time and look at it, and I'm like, man, we're trying. Like, we're moving in this direction.
100%.
Like, these guys aren't even ready with distribution. They don't have their supply chain ready. They haven't even priced the product yet. I'm doing everything I can. It's a little, it's isolating.
Yep.
And it's challenging from a business standpoint because everybody's just trying to do the best they can.
Yes.
I can promise you that. You know, good companies are trying to do the best they can. And I think that it's comments and it's people that talk about health and nutrition like that make everything really, really complicated for us as the restaurant to communicate.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you earlier, I don't think that the first regenerative bison burger we put on the menu took off like it could have or should have because we didn't really have our messaging together, right?
Yeah.
And now I think we do, and I think we're able to tell that story better. And if we're trying to tell that story in the face of, you know, controversy, it makes it really challenging for us to keep going and keep pushing through.
Yeah. I think it's the shaming of restaurants that pisses me off. So I think Seed Oil Scout has done a lot of great things. I think there's a lot of use case for that app. But one of the things that frustrated me is there's a great steakhouse in the east side of Austin that said that they had tallow fries. And I guess someone at Seed Oil Scout just found out that it was a tallow, maybe like canola oil mixture. And it was like shitting all over the restaurant. So if they know that and they're still advertising as tallow fries, I get it. Maybe it's a little bit deceitful. But if they are unknowingly doing that, or the greater point is like, dude, they have meat from all these local farms, local milk. It's like they're really doing things right just to shit all over that restaurant. I don't know. I just don't think that approach is going to do anything to push us forward.
It's not going to help people, and it's not going to help decision makers go in that direction. Because basically what you're saying is, hey, I'm going to shit on this person and try to shame them into spending more money.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, how is that gonna get you what you want? I'm going to shame them into taking their cost of goods up, or you're going to shame them into charging you more.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a exercise in futility.
Yeah. What you described with Zero Acre reminds me a lot of when we launched Noble, which is our beef-based protein powder. You haven't tried it yet because we stocked out, but as soon as we're back in, we got to get you loaded up on it. So we launched the product. I did a thread on Twitter, beef protein isolate, organs, colostrum, collagen. It's sweetened with stevia. There's like a little bit of natural vanilla flavor in there, and then there's silica to help with bindability. And most people were really pumped, but there were all these negative comments about either silica or natural vanilla flavor, like all these purists that had never created a supplement before. They don't know anything. And I'm like, bro, I'm not trying to get you to drink this. I'm trying to get my mom, who's never going to eat organ meats, to get something that tastes really good and get a bunch of nutrients into her system.
Yeah.
Like, this is a bridge product. It's not about you.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to drink this over a steak.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of like with Hopdoddy, whether it's like Zero Acre, whether it's seed oils, whether it's tallow, you're just never going to make anyone happy. So you just have to trust your gut instinct and just know you're doing the right thing.
The comments are actually kind of crazy that we've seen. Like, there are a bunch of people that are like, oh, it's still an oil. Why don't you use beef tallow? I'm like, all right, man. Like, I'm tell you what, I'm going to fill a fryer with beef tallow, and then I'm going to videotape it. I'm going to put it on our social media. I'm going to show you what that process is like. And then you tell me if you think I could do that in 4 fryers in 50 stores, 52 weeks a year, every day, every other day, and then filter it, clean it, refill it. You take a look at the process and you tell me if you think you'd do it if you owned a business.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, like we do get a lot of price pushback. And I think one of the most interesting exercises that I could ever do is sit down with somebody that's like, why are you using seed oils, or why aren't you using this? And I'd probably sit down with them and I'd be like, okay, how about this? Here's my 0 acre fries. Here's how much I charge for them. Let's play a game. How much do you think I should make on that bowl of French fries? Just pick a number. What should I make on that bowl of fries? What would be fair? What would be equitable? Or take this cheeseburger right here.
Yeah.
If I sell you a $10 cheeseburger, what should I be able to make? Now take into consideration all of the overhead in a burger. What should I be able to deposit in the bank at the end of that cheeseburger? You tell me. And 9 times out of 10, the number they come up with is probably more than what I'm actually making.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You probably see that all the time in your guys' product, right? Where you're like, man, we're not trying to gouge anybody. We're trying to make a product for the masses. We're trying to put all this killer stuff in a protein powder and we're trying to sell it to people. And people are like, man, why is this so much? And you're like, dude, I make like $3 on that bag.
Yeah.
Like less, right? Like it's kind of it's a funny game. Like you said, it's like the man in the arena.
Yeah.
Like people that have never been in the arena don't really understand it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone that's criticizing like that has ever done anything valuable or ever operated a restaurant or ever started a supplement company. It's just a lack of understanding, I think, just living in fantasy land.
Yeah, it's pretty weird out there. How's that launch going, by the way?
Dude,
how's it been?
It's going really well. So we did the pre-sale in May. So we've done about 130K in sales off Shopify so far. Mostly just from like organic traction from the show, which has been incredible. And then we just got into Central Market. Wow. So one of our favorite grocery stores in Texas. We got into all the locations.
Shout out Central Market. Love that place.
Yeah, the buyer, Laura, is incredible. We actually met her at KetoCon. She was just there, just attending. She was trying to learn.
Did you guys have a booth?
We had a booth.
Yeah.
The best story is we had a booth, but our product didn't ship in time. So we had bags. So we just filled the bags up with coffee beans, and then we just kind of like made our own like ghetto noble and just like served it to everyone that was there.
That's awesome.
And so she saw the branding and she goes, looks really clean, really interesting. We don't have any beef protein isolates. We're looking to do more with organs. Would you be interested in maybe carrying it in Central Market? I was like, of course we would. We love Central Market. And she pushed it through. She was amazing to work with. And it's such a cool feeling. Like the way that you have that feeling of seeing those regenerative products on the menu, I would imagine that's probably how I felt just seeing your own product on the shelf.
It's so cool. I didn't know you guys were in Central Market. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not in right now because you guys are sold out.
We're going to be back in stock next week.
That's cool.
Because that's the thing with your first PO, there's no science to it. You're like, I think this is what we should order.
Yeah, man. And if you go long and you're sitting on boxes and you got money sitting there and people aren't buying it, you're like, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay the bills around here and get this thing going? Yeah, it's probably better to run short than go long.
Yeah, I think so too. And we did a pre-sale in the interim, and I think people appreciated that. So we did like, hey, we're sold out, buy 2 bags, get 1 free. So the traction with that has been great, but we have like 7,000 bags of chocolate and vanilla coming in next week. So now we'll just be stocked for the indefinite future.
What's the biggest difference between your guys' whey protein isolate in there and like other people's?
So ours is, it's a beef protein isolate.
Oh, beef protein.
Yeah. So it's really just coming mostly from like the muscle tissue and the ligaments of the cow. Mm-hmm. So when we were doing research on the formulation, I had heard people that said beef protein isolates sit better in their stomach. Mm-hmm. And with me, with the ulcerative colitis, like I could just never tolerate whey protein. Mm-hmm. And then we put a little bit of colostrum in there, some organs. And when we started doing the formulation process, I was drinking 2 shakes a day because I was like, if I can't tolerate this, I really can't sell it because it would be super disingenuous. But I noticed it sat really well. It was clean. It tasted good. Like I genuinely enjoyed making the shake so much. And then that's actually probably our biggest piece of customer feedback is how well the protein powder sits in their gut too.
Yeah, that's super cool. My wife doesn't handle powders of any kind very well. Like, she can't even take creatine.
Interesting.
I don't know why.
I wonder what it is about her that can't tolerate that.
Yeah, she can't not tolerate anything. It'd be interesting to see if she can tolerate that. I know, like, she does fine with whey and dairy and stuff like that, but it'd be interesting to see how that sits. I'll grab a bag from you guys. That's really cool. What organs do you guys have in there?
So there's heart, liver, spleen, pancreas, bone, and then blood too.
Wow.
So it's a smaller amount of organs. We say it's like microdosing organs because there's only 25 milligrams of each in there. So it's 250 milligrams total. Mm-hmm. And then we sell a straight up organ powder. It's in the little red bag, which has 600 milligrams of all those in it. So that's comparable to taking like 6 Heart and Soil capsules.
Yeah.
But it's like a way lower price point too.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What made you guys put the collagen in there? Just out of curiosity.
Just like general skin, hair, nails. I mean, bone. We tried to take all the ingredients that help my gut in particular. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of red meat. It was colostrum. It was organs, and then it was bone broth too. And we're like, all right, we can't put bone broth in it, but collagen powder is probably the closest thing that we can get to that too. Yeah. It also helps. Collagen helps a lot with blendability.
I could see that for sure.
So if you blend it, we tried one without collagen and blended it with water, and it had this like weird rust-like translucent color. And then you throw it in there with collagen and it looks like chocolate milk or vanilla milk.
Emulsifier almost. Like
exactly.
It just kind of helps it.
Yeah.
I've never found collagen to be like a great mainstay protein for me. But I also haven't ever tried to isolate like what feels the best. You know, I've just kind of always been for some reason I've always been like a whey protein guy.
Yeah.
I know I'd love to try the beef protein because I don't need to be sold the amino acid complete chain profile, you know, benefits of beef protein. But yeah, that's really interesting. Getting all those things desiccated in powder and then blending them together. That's super cool.
Yeah. It's one of those things too, where it's like, you just have to, again, just go back to like what actually makes you feel good. Yeah. There's people that feel amazing on whey protein powders that are clean. It's like, stick with that. But if you're looking for something different, there's new options that are coming out there too.
Yeah. Have you ever had my friend Mark Bell's steak shake?
I've heard a lot about it, but I've never tried it before, but it looks like an incredible product.
It's pretty good, man. It's pretty tasty. I mean, I can't wait to taste your guys' stuff. I just can't believe that there's all the organs. Everybody's putting organs in this stuff and you can't really taste it. Cause I think cooking organs, it's like that is a very noticeable,
oh my God,
like taste difference too.
If you overcook liver, you're fucked.
Yeah, it's over, dude. It's over. I mean, I have buddies that when they hunt, they'll make their own kind of like ancestral blend and they'll harvest all the organs and like that's pretty pronounced. It gives it a funk for sure.
Yeah, you got to have a palate for it.
Yeah.
I think with ours, the benefit is like because it's that micro dosing, since it's only 250 milligrams.
Yeah,
it's too small to really notice a taste.
It's like a flavor difference.
Yeah, and then with the freeze drying too, it really neutralizes a lot of the flavor of organs.
That's super cool, man. That's really fun.
That's why we got to get a little Hopdoddy regenerative milkshake with some noble chocolate in there too.
Hey man, we're working on it. Like I said, it's in the process right now. Once we get a regenerative sample, we'll bump it in there.
That would be sweet. Is your brain always just buzzing with new ideas and menu items and different ways to incorporate regen?
Yeah, kind of, man. I mean, between like I'm always thinking about what the next thing is and kind of trying to figure out from a positioning and a placement standpoint, like what needs to be on our menu that isn't. So a lot of times I'm sitting in our office and I'm looking at our menu. I start most days looking at our menu.
Yeah.
It's kind of my process. And I'm always kind of asking myself the question, like, what else would a Hopdoddy guest buy from us? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think brands get in a lot of trouble when they try skating way outside of their lane.
Yeah.
But, like, what have I built enough consumer confidence in? And what have I built enough trust and loyal guests that if I put X on the menu, what would somebody buy?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's the way that I source or the way that we cook or the way that we present food, like, what could I get somebody to maybe edge a little bit outside of the burger, shakes, and fries? And like, what would they try?
Yeah.
You know, or how many different ways could I reinvent burger, shakes, and fries?
Yeah.
You know, with the 0 acre thing, one thing that I'm getting ready to try, I'll just spoiler alert on the pod. I've had this idea of like a composed fry bowl. So like if you consider like almost like a deconstructed burger, have all those flavors tossed in with French fries and then like chopped beef or chopped whatever protein on top. And then it would almost be like a knife and fork bowl.
Yeah.
So almost think of like a rice bowl, but instead of like the base of it being rice, it would be like French fries done in 0 acre.
I love that idea.
You know,
I would smash one of those things.
So like take like our bison burger, for example, right? It's got bacon, blue cheese, hot sauce, and a little bit of Dottie mayo, right? And then some lettuce, tomato, onion. So what if I chop the lettuce, tomato, and onion like small dice, like almost pico size, right? And toss those with the French fries, and then I crumbled blue cheese on top of it, and I finished it with, you know, hot sauce, and then there was, you know, crumbled bison on top of it, and maybe I threw a little bit of like, you know, arugula on top or something like that. Like eating that with like a fork and knife, like somebody like you and me would be like, heck yeah, man, potatoes over like bread. Like I would just do that because of like all of the macronutrients or all the micronutrients in potatoes, right?
Yeah.
And heart healthy oils, bison, like a little crumbled bacon, I'm in. So I'm kind of trying to think of that. Like that's one of the things I'm kind of working on right now is like, how can I reimagine other things inside of our menu where it's still in our lane, but maybe it's a little outside? Like this composed burger bowl thing I'm kind of thinking of right now.
We got to do a whiteboarding session at the Hopdoddy kitchen where you just start throwing out crazy ass ideas and Harry and I will just be your guinea pigs and just try everything.
Yeah, man.
Dude, you actually bring up a really interesting point of we have this tendency to just demonize food groups of like, hey, a French fry is just an unhealthy food. And something Harry and I have been talking a lot more about is it's not the food itself. It's really the preparation that determines the poison or the antidote of it.
Dude, that's so crazy you guys are talking about that. I was just, when I was presenting to our team, about this 0 Acre product. I was like, hey man, if you go to a steakhouse and you get a baked potato and it comes with a little cheese or a little butter, you're not thinking in your head, oh my gosh, I got to watch how much of this I eat. You're like, dude, it's a baked potato, right? At Hopdoddy, our French fries are that same potato just run through a punch.
Yeah.
And instead of cheese or sour cream or butter, I'm just putting it in 0 Acre oil, which is a heart healthy oil, more polyunsaturated fat than olive oil. Obviously, it lacks some, like there's no butyrate in 0 Acre oil like there is in butter or some of the positive things you can find in butter. But, I could make an argument that maybe my French fries are more healthy than a baked potato with butter. It's the preparation, it's the ingredients. There's a ton of ways. You're absolutely right. Like demonizing food, I think, is kind of it's a path that there's no end to it. Like when do you stop demonizing stuff?
Yeah.
I think it's so cool because I'm starting to hear more and more people talk about the fact that like every single freaking thing has been shit on or demonized at some point, right?
Everything.
Like whether it's eggs or vegetables or red meat or oatmeal or rice or can't have fruit, too much fructose, what can you have,
Yeah.
And so it's wild, man. And I just feel like when the health conversation comes back to like personal responsibility, food, like proper choices, and it looks at like caloric load. And then I'm a big fan, and I have for a long time, of like the protein leveraging theory. I'm sure you're familiar with it. That basically like your body is going to eat, like say you need to eat 200 grams of protein a day to be full, not to build muscle or lose weight, but like say your body needs 200 grams of protein a day. You will continue to eat until you reach 200 grams of protein. So if if you don't know how to make the choices right, or you don't make the choices right, maybe you'll have a Snickers bar. That's got 5 grams of protein.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll have a bag of chips. That's got 10 grams of protein. Then maybe you'll think you're eating healthy and you'll have like a salad. Well, it's got 30 grams of protein. Well, you still need to make your way to 200 grams of protein, but on the way, the amount of energy calories that you eat, meaning fat and carbohydrates, might eclipse what your total daily energy expenditure is. And that's how people gain weight, get overly fat or overly caloried. So I'm a big fan of that. Like I'm a big fan of personal responsibility when it comes to food choices, sourcing and, selection, and then just making sure that you prioritize protein.
Yeah, to your point with protein leveraging, I would imagine that's kind of a sneaky backdoor way why carnivore is so effective. Because like, dude, you whack 2 ribeyes a day, that's 200 grams of protein right there. You're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, whatever else you eat is kind of white noise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny because protein is almost a free calorie in that regard, right?
Yes.
Like the thermic effect of protein, it burns some of itself, right? Your body can't really store protein as fat. I think for some reason that's such a weird thing that people don't understand, right? That like carbohydrates and fat, they're energy calories. And if you eat too much energy and you don't burn it, you're going to store that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, your body's going to store fat. So if you overeat it all, your body's just going to store whatever kind of dietary fat that you ate that day. Like if you know what I'm saying? So like, a perfect example is if you crush 2 ribeyes and you got 100 grams of protein, but you got 150 grams of fat, and that takes you right to your caloric maintenance. But then you eat, let's say, a bowl and a half, 2 bowls of rice.
Yeah.
You're not actually going to probably store any of the carbs or the protein from the rice. You're going to store all the fat from the steak.
Yeah.
Right? Like your body's going to try to store fat.
Yeah.
The net deposition of fat really comes from caloric intake. So I just think it's really interesting that if people thought of nutrition and dietary choices differently, I think that it would be really easy to like make room in people's diets for choices that either led them down, hey, I'm eating this because I need to get my protein in, or hey, I'm eating this because I want to get full, but I don't want to take on too many extra calories. Like, I just think that there's a lot of things that make sense there. Yeah,
it's such a good point. And my mind was blown last year when I started to think about homemade ice cream as a health food.
Oh, do you have a creamy?
Not a cream. I keep seeing that pop up. Dude. I just bought one. I bought some type of ice cream maker off Amazon. Do I need a creamy?
You need a creamy. It's not even a debate, dude. I eat ice cream for breakfast now.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
what is your ice cream? Raw milk?
Dude, yeah.
Cream? Egg yolks?
I don't even it's even simpler, man. I do non-fat milk because I just want to keep my fat low. I do non-fat milk. I do 2 whole eggs and like 3 scoops of protein. And I actually put a little bit of sugar-free Jell-O in there to help it bind, freeze it, blitz it in the creamy. Dude, it tastes like Cold Stone.
Yeah. And that's a health food too.
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, it's all preparation.
It's preparation, it's context, and it's kind of, again, I hate to keep harping on this, but it comes back to calories and the choices that you make and how you kind of pair your meals around those calories, you know?
Yeah.
One of the best quotes I've ever heard lately was, when people are always saying the age-old advice that eat less, move more doesn't work.
Yes.
I think that's wrong. I think that it does work, but that's not helpful advice.
Why do you think it's not helpful advice?
Because I don't think it tells people what they need to know.
Yeah.
You know, eat less, move more. What does that mean? Like, do I eat less fat? Do I eat less carbs? Like, do I fast? Do I, what do you mean move more? Like, do I just need to walk a bunch? Do I need to go resistance train?
Yeah.
Do I need to get a stand-up desk? Like, I don't think it's wrong advice. I just don't necessarily think it's helpful because I don't think it gives people a roadmap of how to actually like take control of their health.
Yeah.
So I think it's an accurate statement. I just don't think it's helpful.
Yeah. What is your simple blueprint when one of your buddies is coming to you and they're like, dude, I put on like 20 pounds. I just don't feel good. I'm not really lifting weights. I don't really know what to eat. Where do I start? Like, because I feel like you have a very dialed in, simplified, and effective approach to eating.
Yeah, man. I'm a big fan of, Stan Efferding's vertical diet.
Yeah.
I think that, like, especially people with gut stuff, like,
Dude.
I think that is just dialed in. But somebody that knows nothing about nutrition and like maybe has a little bit of knowledge of like exercise or whatever, I'm a huge fan of walks. So like first thing I'll tell somebody, like if you're 25 pounds overweight, I think it's pretty easy to tighten up. If you're 150 pounds overweight, I think you need some intervention. So like if somebody's 150 pounds overweight and they come to me, or like a buddy like used to play linebacker, now he looks like a nose guard. If he's like, dude, what do? I would be like, man, just do me a favor. Just do red meat and water for 30 days. Because I think that helps people just peel off a ton of weight.
Yes.
Really, really quick. I think that is like, without having to get into somebody and be like, hey, how much do you weigh? What's your body fat, and try to help them come up with a macronutrient profile. And hey, when can you exercise? What can you do? I think the easiest, prescriptive way is just like, if somebody's 100 pounds overweight, dude, take 3 10-minute walks a day, eat red meat and water till you're full.
And watch what happens.
Yeah. And then in 30 days, like you won't lose 100 pounds, but you'll lose enough weight that you feel some momentum.
Yep.
And then from there, I think you're like, all right, dude, like throw some rice in there. Like throw some rice in there and then keep walking, and then kind of get them to exercise a little bit more. And I think that people are so intimidated by exercise and by the gym because of like what they see on Instagram or what they see when they pull up to a gym. Like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go for a 4-hour session where you're like spitting on the bar and bleeding from the nose when you deadlift. You don't need to go for a 4-hour run. Like, man, sometimes like when my wife and I, like when we travel and we're out hunting and we're in like Spain or we're in South Africa and we both want to do something, like we work out, we train every day, but it doesn't need to be complicated, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, listen, I'm going to do 100 walking lunges out. I'm going to do 100 back. While I'm doing that, why don't you do, push-ups to failure and air squats to failure, and then we'll switch. Yeah. And it takes like 30 minutes. And like, there's some great studies out right now that I've been seeing more popularized about like what it takes to maintain a baseline of fitness is so little.
It's so little.
It's so little. Like, man, if you do like some farmer's carries with some really heavy dumbbells for like 10 minutes and then like do some kettlebell swings, if you're already at a decent fitness level, like you'll maintain for like weeks.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I always just tell people just to try to eat more protein, eat as much protein as you want. And then just try to get them moving a little bit. Because most time people that are overweight just aren't moving.
Yeah.
So just go for a walk.
Yeah.
And I think the easiest thing to do, like one of my tricks, and I got this from Stan, is like even when I go to a restaurant, I will walk out the front door, I will just hard right and just start my phone timer for 5 minutes. Just walk for 5 minutes when my timer goes off, walk back. Just got a quick 10-minute walk after dinner, postprandial meal or postprandial walk after, it's money.
And that could be half a mile to 3/4 of a mile too, which is like 100 plus calories that you just burn there.
Yeah. It's crazy. I think walking is huge, man. I think people underestimate how much walking can help. I think you throw a weight vest on or a rucksack on, it's even better.
Yeah.
I think it just does so much for like your structure and your body. And like people just don't stand on their feet and like do enough anymore. I don't think, like you don't need to go in the gym and squat a bunch or bench press a crazy amount. I do, I know you do, but to maintain like fitness or just like fitness is like the next evolution past just health. You know, like just to be healthy, I feel like it just requires not eating like a jerk.
Yeah.
You know?
And if anyone is skeptical about how simple this approach is, my buddy Tripp, who you'll meet eventually, he's an Austin guy. At one point, he was 300 pounds, an addict, totally cleaned himself up, gotten really into his faith, signed up for an Ironman when he was 270. He was 270, lost like 30 pounds, did the Ironman. He's training for a 100-miler right now. So he was asking me about the carnivore diet. And I was like, dude, literally just eat red meat, eggs, salt your meals, drink water, and just try that for a month and then come back to me. He texted me today. He started the diet last Wednesday. He's down like 8 pounds already.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's really hard to overeat on red meat.
It's so hard to overeat red meat.
Number one, protein's really satiating. Number two, like the fat sits pretty heavy on you if you're eating fatty meats. Number three, like for lack of a better term, it can be boring.
Yes.
You know? So I think a lot of times people are chasing flavors or they're chasing, you know, this like oral experience that, you know, you don't really get with red meat.
Yeah.
And so it can be pretty boring. And if you decide, hey, I'm going to eat red meat, water, and some eggs, like there's not a lot of variety. So like you're not like craving, not sitting here like, man, I'd really love a sandwich right now. Like you're like, oh, man, I'm hungry, but I got to go home and brown up a pound of red meat.
Yeah.
That can be a pretty easy restrictor.
Yeah.
You know?
Benefit to having your cooking skill though is you can make a steak 50 different ways that all taste different and hit different palate satiations. Like one of the things that I've been doing is I buy the blue cheese butter from Salt and Thyme.
Yep.
And then I'll finish the steak in the blue cheese butter and just throw a little like balsamic glaze on it and chop it up. It's like the best steak I've ever had.
Dude, next time you and Harry are cooking steak, I was actually thinking about this driving over here. If you haven't done it, do it. It's not calorically friendly, but it'll be delicious. I assume you guys have done like a reverse sear many a time, right?
Yes.
Okay, so knock out a quick reverse sear, but pull the steak a little quicker than you think you would. Take a bunch of butter, take 4 bricks of butter and brown it up, or not brown it up, just melt it. You can brown it if you want. Melt it in like a deep saute pan. And after you sear the steak, after the reverse sear, instead of resting it on a plate, dunk it in the butter.
Dude.
Just let it sit in the butter and rest and pull it out, and it's pretty silly.
Is that your favorite way to make steak?
I mean, if I didn't care about calories, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Only calories weren't a thing.
If calories weren't a thing, that's how I'd make every steak. I would reverse sear it. I'd actually probably smoke it, then sear it, and then let it rest in like a bain marie of butter or like a little pan of like melted butter. It would be fire. And then if I wanted to really juice it up, I'd throw like some rosemary in that fryer and like a little garlic to kind of infuse the butter, and then just let the steak rest in there, like cool down in that butter.
Just all these simple tweaks that upgrade your dish so much.
Yeah,
outside of something you've made, is there a particular steak that stands out where you're like, this is the best steak I've ever had?
Yeah, I literally got asked this question the other day. It was what's my favorite food memory that I've ever had? And the first thing that jumped to mind was Marshall Seedorf made me an elk chop steak that he had killed, and he made it for me at his house, and he served it with Axis tenderloin, and it was the best meal I've ever had in my life.
Dude.
It was over the top. And it was Marshall and his wife. It was me and my wife. And there was great friends. There was great conversation. There was this amazing meat that he had harvested, that he had prepared. He had butchered everything. I mean, straight out of like bags with like a date on it and everything. Just cast iron seared it. Super simple. I don't even know what he did, but it was to die for. It was best, probably one of the best meals I've ever had. I mean, time, place, context, people, conversation have a lot to do with that. But pure flavor and like food, it's right up there. Probably one of the best.
Dude, that's a big compliment to Miles too.
Yeah, Marshall.
Sorry, why did I say Miles?
He's pretty proud of that because I told him that the other day. I told him that I said, hey man, you need to watch this. Somebody asked me that, and he was like, big compliments coming from you.
His ego must have been insane that day.
Yeah, he was probably pretty fired up.
Yeah,
it was that was the best memory, like steak wise, that I think I've ever had. I think steaks are hard to stand out, man.
Yeah.
You know, like you get
really are.
You get like a dry aged Delmonico, or you get, some crazy, A5 Wagyu. Yeah, you can tell that those are different, but like pretty much everything in between to me kind of tastes relatively the same.
Yeah.
It's really hard to go to a restaurant and get a steak too.
That's exceptional.
Yeah.
I will say, Harry and I were speaking at a conference in Vegas 2 weeks ago, and we went to Cut. Wolfgang Puck spot
Yeah.
in Vegas. That was one of the best steaks I've ever had.
Yeah.
For like a steakhouse quality, it was insane. But again, you're still kind of biased because it's like the appetizers, it's the sides, it's like
Yeah.
that whole experience that blends together that makes
Exactly.
it so exceptional.
That's kind of why I think my mind immediately went like a home meal.
Yes.
Because like one of the best restaurants I've ever been to in my life is Canlis in Seattle. The food's good, but I mean, the service, the atmosphere, the ambiance, I mean, it's world famous for their service, but like that's probably one of the best restaurant experiences I've ever had. But the food is like, it's good. It's really good. Don't get me wrong, but it's everything else. So I think when you talk about like, what's the best food or best, meal, it's like, there's so many other things that go into it that aren't on the plate.
Yeah. I think if you ask like 9 out of 10 people and ask them to answer that same question, I would say 9 out of 10 would be some type of home cook experience with the people that they love.
Yeah. And if they thought really hard about it, it might even just be a dish that like their mom made when they were growing up, or their grandmother made, or that they took part in with, a loved one or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of food. And that's the thing that I think gets lost in restaurants a lot of times, is there's such an experiential element to restaurants that doesn't always appear on the plate. And I think that sometimes it's easy to lose your way and forget that as a restaurateur, that it's the whole package. It's how you're greeted at the door. How's the parking lot look? Is there toilet paper in the bathrooms? Was the person behind the bar, like, were they well groomed? Like, do they have, hair hanging out of their mouth? Did the kid behind the cashier, was he chewing gum and smacking his lips? And, was the menu crooked? Like, there's so many little things. Was there paper towels when I sat down? Was the booth clean? Like, all of those little things kind of remove people from an atmosphere and an ambiance that should be like indicative of what the restaurant is trying to deliver. But all those little touch points along the way can really like hijack your senses out of that. And so I think a really well executed meal, whether it's at home or in a restaurant, a lot of times it's just as it should be. So I think a lot of times when you're in a restaurant space and you're trying to create a great experience or a remarkable moment, you're really just trying to get yourself out of the way.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I feel like when I get addicted to Chef's Table, I've been thinking so much about like, why do I love this show so much? Because it's my favorite show or documentary that I've ever seen. And I think there's something about these guys and girls, these head chefs, the way that they chase perfection. I don't know if I've ever come across perfectionists like that in my day-to-day life that are like being willing to work for less than minimum wage for those crazy hours. I know something you've said is like, if you're not willing to go to the restaurant at 3 a.m. on your birthday to clean out shit out of the toilet, you shouldn't be a chef because you're not going to make it.
Yeah, you won't make it. It's not even, I mean, I truly wholeheartedly believe that. Culinary has this way of galvanizing elements of people's personalities that they might not even know existed until they started cooking. You know? I think you find it, I think the reason you love that show is because there's a personality and there's an in-depth dive behind people that are just chasing excellence, right?
That's what it is.
You probably would love a documentary if it was a documentary on, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Babe Ruth, like anybody that's ever been excellent, whether it was a sport or, I mean, if there's a documentary about, Henry Ford or, Enzo Ferrari or any of those people, like people that really went out and just were trying to just chase something amazing. I think that's what's so cool about that show is this relentless pursuit to the craft and never wanting to give up and just almost a stubborn ignorance in chasing what it is that they set out to do. I agree. It's an amazing show. And it romanticizes restaurants and culinary and chef life a little bit. But I think it's at that level, it is real. Like, I don't think any of those guys are putting on.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is. The flip side of that is I can't even watch the Bear.
Yeah.
I can't even watch that because it gives me like night terrors.
Do you get like PTSD from it?
Yeah. I'll wake up. I got like 3 episodes. I was waking up in the middle of the night hearing the ticket machine go, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. That's a perfect representation. I only watched a couple episodes in the first season, but that's perfect representation of what a restaurant is like.
Yeah, I remember one of the really iconic scenes that kept popping up. It was either the first season or the second season where the main character would have these like traumatic flashbacks of the head chef at that restaurant just like looking over his shoulder and being like, why are you so fucking slow? You're terrible. Like just berating him. Yeah. Is it actually like that with some of those top guys? Like, are they mad? They like that?
The top guys aren't, but usually like they're number 2.
They're number 2.
Yeah, their number 2 is. Yeah.
So they just crack the whip.
Yeah. I remember being in a kitchen one time, I'm not going to say where, and I was the young guy, and the chef de cuisine, kind of the number 2, was like, hey, I need you to micro brunoise mirepoix. So carrots, celery, and onions. Micro brunoise is like the size of my pinky nail, and it's got to be a perfect square. So you got to trim the veggies, and then you got to actually like cut them very, very intentionally. And I was like, okay, how much? He's like 600 pan of each. The 600 pan's a sheet pan, or it's like a sheet pan, but it's 6 inches deep. So I did 1 of onions, 1 of carrots, 1 of celery. It took me like probably 4 hours, right? And I was like, chef, micro brunoise mirepoix up. And he's like, thanks. He walked over and he grabbed each of them and he poured them into a soup and blitzed them up with an immersion blender and just stared at me like, and I was like, oh, this is great.
Dude.
It's kind of hazing. It's like probably like being in the military or something.
Yeah.
Like holding my paring knife. Like, are you serious right now?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably humbles you real quick.
Yeah.
Did you ever know anyone that worked for Marco Pierre White? Because I feel like I love devouring that guy's YouTube content.
No, I don't. But I know I have a couple friends that are huge fans of him. He's a savage. He's not normal. That guy's not a human.
Yeah. Even just being willing to like just return his Michelin stars because he decided that he was done and then just hasn't gone back to cooking in like 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, he sold high for sure. He just sailed off into the sunset.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I'll ask you, because I know we got to get you out of here, that press release came out that I guess Sweet Green announced that they're going to replace all seed oils with olive oil.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, number one, just your reaction to that. And number two, how do we make other large companies like Hopdoddy replicate some of the things that you're doing?
Yeah. I think that Sweet Green doing that, it's awesome. Like, I think it's a great move. I mean, obviously olive oil is better than the alternative. It's not quite what I think Zero Acre is doing. But I think it's a great step in the right direction. I think the more companies that make any move like this, I think it just helps the overall food culture and the food environment kind of move in a direction I think is ultimately better for human health.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of anything that does that because I think a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yep.
Right. I think they're already a salad concept. So I think it's kind of like, I think sometimes you got to be careful when you make these announcements because when you say what you are doing, you basically are admitting what you weren't doing before.
Yeah.
And you're saying, hey, I'll look at how healthy all of our stuff is. And then people might be like, oh, that wasn't very healthy before.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. I think the way to keep moving things in a positive direction, and this sounds really trite and really overdone, but people just have to vote with their dollars.
Yeah.
To the extent that you can, you just have to vote with your dollars. You have to support brands and support companies that align with your values and your mission as a person and kind of your goals as an individual, whether that be health or whether that be something that you want to stand for, or something that you want to stand behind. Professionally and personally, I feel really blessed because a lot of the things that are really important to me kind of align, right? Like I want to be a healthy person, so I want to serve healthy food. I want to be able to partake in being outdoors and enjoying everything that we have, on this earth and this country. So I really want to make sure that we leave it in a better place, right? Yeah. And I want to make sure that we do our part to kind of give back and kind of let Mother Nature run the farm, or let Mother Nature run nature. And then I also want to be a great businessman. And I think that great business doesn't always have to come at the expense of the guest. It also doesn't have to come at the expense of the company. Sometimes being a great business is providing a service, providing an option, or providing a choice for somebody. And I think that, we live in the information era where there's so much information out there. We've talked about it a lot today, but I would just say people just need to keep doing their research. And I think the more people that do their research, the more people that find brands, companies, and products that are moving in this direction, I think it's going to be so good for everybody. I don't think that trolling people is ever going to get it done.
It won't.
I don't think that's the way to go. I don't think that's a virtuous path.
Yeah.
I think that there are people out there that can be really divisive with like what they're doing versus other people. I think a certain amount of that can be kind of fun and glib. We do a little bit of that. But I think everybody kind of banding together and like, really when people vote with their dollars and companies vote with their dollars, I think it's really great. The most controversial thing I'll ever say on here is the whole Bud Light boycott over what happened. Whether you agree, disagree, or whether you think it was right or wrong, we don't need to get into that. But what I will say is really cool about it. Not saying that I thought it was cool people boycotted it. But what I thought was really cool is that the people showed a massive company that their vote matters.
Yes.
Right? Whether you think that their vote matters or not, Bud Light was forced to make changes because of the consumer.
Yes.
Because of what people thought or what people did.
Yeah.
So again, remove the politics, remove the all of that stuff from it. What I think was really cool is that that people took a stand against something, or people told the company, this is what we want, or this is what, and a huge company like Bud Light felt it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you just, again, remove, I cannot say this enough. I do not align with any of that stuff. We don't need to talk about any of that here. But point of me saying that is that if enough people can get together and make Bud Light feel it, then I think enough people can get together and they can bring regenerative agriculture to the mainstream. They can bring healthy fats to the mainstream. They can bring a higher, more conscious awareness of food into restaurants. They can demand it, and they can reject products that fly in the face of that. And they can really, really work hard to, expose their friends to that, whether it means, budget for your own self so you can go to the grocery store and support these products and these companies. But I think that, companies will feel it. And I think companies are a lot more fickle than people are aware of right now. In this environment, we were just joking beforehand. You're like, oh, Hopdoddy, you guys are doing so great. You might not need sales. Man, we fight every day for every sale we get. And every company that we work with is like that. We're all doing the best we can, and we're all trying our absolute hardest to create a great environment for our people, a great environment for the guests that we serve, and a great business model for our shareholders. And everybody's vote really, really, really matters. And if you don't believe me, just look at what happened to Bud Light. Again, whether you agree with it or not, I think that's a big, big, big message.
Yeah, you're purely referencing that because it's a great representation that your vote does matter. It's honestly not that dissimilar from the whole GameStop thing when all these people, these day traders turned these hedge funds upside down on their heads.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
It's possible.
It's possible.
It doesn't feel, none of the stuff that you guys talk about on here feels that far away.
No.
It's such a cool time right now.
Yeah.
It's such a cool time. We live in this information era with, in the greatest country on earth with tons of freedom, and we have access. We know what's out there. We know what we can put in our bodies. We know what we shouldn't. We know how we should live, and we know the things that we should do. And I think it's just so great. I think that how do we know we're ever going to be in a time such as this? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say.
Dude, you're hopeful all day long. It reminds me, I hated science class in high school. And I remember my sophomore year, the teacher showed us Food Inc. for the first time.
Yeah, dude.
And I remember Michael Pollan I think the way it ended was it was saying that your vote matters. And if you don't drive purchases with the decisions that you want, these companies don't actually know that you exist. So I think there's this misconception of, hey, Epic got bought by General Mills, Primal Kitchen got bought by Kraft. These are inherently bad things. There's actually a lot of good that comes from that. And it's also an example of hopefully the company decided, hey, morally, we want some healthier products in our portfolio. But secondly, it's a great business opportunity. Therefore, we need to acquire these brands, right? Just like with Hopdoddy, you heard the customer feedback. You're like, all right, let's do something better. We're going to swap seed oils for 0 acre oil. We're going to put in regenerative burgers because we believe in this stuff. It's like, I think people misassociate mafia as sometimes being negative because we tell a lot of these stories about the history of the food system. And the purpose is the exact opposite. We're hopeful all day long. We want to arm you with feedback so you can make the right choices and actually drive vote with your dollar so we can win this battle.
100%. I know you guys have talked so much about regenerative ag, so we don't need to go deep down it. But what I would tell you is that the best, smartest people out there are kind of watching cycles of whether it be agriculture or farming or whatever, and they think that regenerative ag is probably 5 years away from being the thing. And my mission is try to expedite that.
Yeah. Can we do it in 2 years? I think we can.
I think we can do it in 2.
I think the velocity and the critical mass is there.
I agree.
But dude, I also wanted to call out to the audience, man, because this episode has been amazing. Getting to have you back on second podcast is incredible. But honestly, my off the record perspective on you is you meet a lot of interesting people in this space, and sometimes you meet people that really match up to the persona, and then a lot of times you meet people where it's they're one way on the microphone and then they're a different way off air. Dude, you've been one of the most supportive people by far to Harry and I, whether it's the events that you invite us to, the check-in texts that you send, I feel like you've gone above and beyond to support us, and we feel it. And I just want the audience to know that you're as real as they come, and we just appreciate you,
Thanks,
dude.
man. I love everything you guys are doing. It's been great being back, man.
All right. Well, part 3 potentially with Taylor, maybe.
With Taylor, I can bring my wife.
That'd
Sounds
be good. All right. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks.
Man.